Okay, folks, welcome back to another MTG Goldfish podcast, episode 244. Wow, I almost, I actually didn't know the number this time. So, I'm with, I'm here with Seth. Wow, I am, it's been a long time since I've done this.
This
is, I'm here with Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. What's up, Seth?
Oh, Chaz, it is awesome to have you back. I've missed you, man. It is so cool to have you back on the podcast.
I've missed you all, too. And I'm here with Richard, the owner of MTG Goldfish. What's up, Richard?
What's up, Chaz? This is a voice I haven't heard in a long time. A welcome guest this week.
Very welcome. I'm so happy to come back and cast with you all. Chaz, I'm assuming, maybe folks remember. I don't know. It's been quite some time since I've done an intro. I probably botched that pretty good, but
really, Chaz was. If you've just joined the podcast, we're at episode 244, so it's been like 5 years. If you are someone that's joined the podcast more recently, actually, the podcast kind of goes back to Chaz. I think it was Chaz that actually had the idea for the Goldfish podcast and was part of the original podcast crew. I don't know what episode you left on, but it was like 2 or 3 years that we all casted together before you went on hiatus. So
yeah, it feels really good. It's almost like we just kind of picked up where we left off. I love that.
Yeah, Chaz created the podcast. He edited the podcast for the longest time. And this week, he's here filling in for Crim, who's at Twitch Con. So Chaz was around. Chaz was messaged Seth, said, "Hey, I'm back. Let's talk some Magic." And here we are.
It's pretty much, it exactly happened like that. It was pretty much, "Hey, I'm back. I have some time." And the podcast immediately came up, and here we are. And what better time? I mean, we have a set that just released. I'm super excited. I don't know if you two are excited. I'm sure you always have your skepticisms, but as a green fanatic, this might actually be the best set of all time. Not even kidding. I'm not even kidding.
You missed the last 3 years of Magic where everything is green, Chaz. Everything is green.
You know what? When you show me Oko, Guruk, Once Upon a Time, Questing Beast, I don't even need to see the rest of the set. I'm on board.
The most powerful Magic card of all time. The
I'm
Goose.
Like, okay, cool. I'm
Goose.
good with this. Gilded Goose. I'm sure you're already annoyed about that.
Gilded Goose. Yeah, I'm annoyed about Gilded Goose into Oko in specific. Like, Oko's really strong anyway, but when it comes down on turn 2, oh my god. It's like, doesn't look like that good of a card, but then when you face it on turn 2, it feels unbeatable.
Yeah. So that being said, what we're talking about Eldraine pre-release, or there was like some arena early previews going on for like constructed and limited. I know you engaged in the limited aspect. I think they released that later in the day.
Yeah, we're doing, so we're mostly today, it's going to be all Eldraine. We're doing standard Eldraine, first week of standard, or even, it's not even out in paper, but early standard results for Eldraine. Also, pre-release experiences. So I know I did a sealed on Thursday, actually, on the stream. Richard has played some limited. Have you done any, arena seals or anything, Chaz?
I have not hit up arena or sealed in general, nor paper nor arena yet, but I plan to. I just I wanted to play in the free event. I watched a lot of streams. Shout out to all the streamers that were engaged in the early event. I know I've stopped in on a few of them. I know I saw Autumn, Emma, Reed, a few more. So it looks really intriguing to me. I mean, I love this set. I absolutely love this set. It's a great set to come back and jump in, especially, I don't know who came up with the idea of free standard, but that has to be one of their better ideas. Have they done that before?
I think this is the first time that Arena has done, you get all the cards for a few days and can build any decks you want. So yeah, that's a really cool promotion, I think, and a really neat idea.
Yeah, the closest we've gotten, I think, is top 8 deck list at a Pro Tour in a gauntlet on Magic Online. Which is a vastly different experience than make any deck you want and play 12 games, and next week get a chance to win one of each card in Eldraine.
Yeah, we were actually just talking before we were recording. I had so much fun that I might actually just make like a couple more accounts and just grind through 12 more games.
I think I'm done with my Oko playing for 12 games. We'll see how the metagame shakes up.
Oh, Oko, look, I said this like as I saw the card. I think I mentioned this on Twitter or something. My first like 3 tweets were about probably Oko or something. But we saw the card from what I remember, and we saw like create a food token or whatever, right? And we didn't really know. I don't think we were even privy to what food actually was yet.
No, we didn't.
And it turns out it doesn't even matter because the card is just insane.
I've played like 6 games or something with the Simic ramp deck. I haven't cracked a food token yet. They've all become like 3/3 elks or fodder for the wolf.
Yeah.
Or goose fodder, but I don't think I've actually cracked a single. Like I don't even need it. I've played aggro like every single match. I'm like, you just don't need to crack these food tokens. They're just better off as 3/3 elks.
I have forcibly transmuted gooses into elks.
Oh yeah,
definitely guilty.
Once they've laid a couple eggs, done their job, ramped you into a superior position, you just turn them into
everything
game.
becomes an elk.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. I don't know because I played against Teferi, and Teferi is definitely a very good card, very strong card. Liliana's a very strong card. I don't know how many years we have to go back. This feels like the strongest 3-mana planeswalker I might have ever played with. And I played with Liliana in Standard.
Ooh, this is a good question. So Teferi stronger or Oko stronger? Because I feel like Teferi's been a joke so far in all the games I've seen him in. Like sometimes he's good, but Oko's always been super oppressive.
I was just fascinated that Oko is so versatile and it can play so many different games, like within a game. It's just ridiculous. Me personally, I just felt like what you said, Seth, in some games, it feels almost unstoppable.
Yeah,
unless you outright kill Oko, it feels unstoppable.
Especially, yeah, when it comes down on turn 2 off of Gilded Goose, like, you just get the feeling like, oh my god, this is gonna make so many 3/3s, there's no way I'm gonna win this game. It feels, at least to me, a little bit fairer when it comes down on turn 3, but it's still, like, it's got so much loyalty. I think when I first saw it, I was like, all right, like, it doesn't really protect itself, although it actually kind of does you always have some random thing to turn into a 3/3, so it kind of does protect itself, but the loyalty is just so high for coming down on turn 2 or turn 3. It feels like you can never get it off the battlefield unless you have like a Murderous Rider or something. I've definitely played a lot of games, not necessarily with Oko, but against Oko, where it's at like 12 loyalty, 16 loyalty, my opponent's just like ticking it up, and what do? You're just like, okay, I guess this is just like a thing for the rest of the game until it kills me. Like, you can't really do anything about it.
I've seen Oko lose, okay? Like, I've seen Oko lose. Like, either you're playing against, like, Teferi stacks, where, like, none of his abilities matter. Like, his ultimate does nothing. He makes 3/3s that get wrathed away, or you just block him. Or you play something like a Questing Beast and, like, try to get in there and, like, kill the Oko or Rankle. But, you know, for a turn 2 play, or turn 3 play, you know, it's like very little loss, and the opponent has to have the exact right sequence. And like, if you just like turn 3 Murderous Rider, it feels so bad. Like, you've done nothing. They have an elk, they have a goose, and you just Murderous Ridered, and like, you lost 2 life on top of that. Like, it's just does not feel good. Like, what you really need is like a Thoughtseize or something. Just get rid of Oko. Don't let him come down. And yeah, but Oko's just super oppressive. I played on the other side for a while. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'll just play Simic. And then I cast some Hydroid Crassus. For some reason, we have like soul lands in Standard. I could just cast like a 10 mana Crassus or a 10 mana Hydra backed with an Oko. I'm like, oh, this is good. I'll just do this. Like, why bother playing the other cards?
Yeah, as good from what I felt, as good Oko is, or can be in most situations. I felt like there was a very small percentage where you don't want Oko, or Oko is not affecting the board in some way. But there were a ton of other very powerful lines in this Standard. Like, so Goose into the 7/6 dinosaur into Great Henge almost felt unstoppable too. It's like, okay, I lose.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
That felt just as powerful.
Speaking of Great Henge and dinosaurs, so what are the other decks in the format? We've talked about Simic Ramp. We have Golgari.
Actually, before we jump into the format and standard, just a quick reminder to everyone that our show today is brought to you by SpikesAcademy.com, and they are presenting a new course on Limited with Hall of Famer Ben Stark. And in this course, Ben will teach you how to build a better draft concealed deck and how to evaluate cards in limited context. So get ready to crush your next pre-release tournament with SpikesAcademy.com and their new Limited course. With Ben Stark, you can even use the code Goldfish to get a 5% discount at SpikesAcademy.com. So, Richard, yes, sponsorship stuff, had to slip that in there. Let's talk about standard.
Love it.
So Golgari midrange. Basically, all the Golgari cards: Questing Beast, Rankle, Spawn of Mayhem, Rotting Regisaur. Oh, that hurts my heart. Growth Chamber Guardian, Knight of the Ebon Legion, and then the Great Henge and Once Upon a Time.
The Great Henge also feels pretty unbeatable. Although, like, one of the things, going back to Oko for a minute, one of the things about Oko that makes it really obnoxious is it turns artifacts into 3/3s too. So I've been trying to build, like, Cauldron decks or Great Henge decks, and your opponent just plays Oko and makes it a 3/3. You're like, I just cast a 12 mana artifact. Give me a break. Like, come on now, Oko. And even that, Oko is just an answer for.
It was really ridiculous. I know some games. I think I was playing against the Stacks deck. I know you kind of just mentioned that. It's a very intricate. I love the play style of the deck. I don't think we've had a Stacks deck in Standard probably forever. But it was just so interesting how many lines get skewed because, like, it's just like you said, Seth. They play the Great Henge, you turn into a 3/3, or they play like a Talisman. You take it. You turn it into a 3/3. They never get the Talisman back. It's like so many weird things are going on. And it's all because of Oko sometimes. But, you know, I felt like, it's like you said, Richard, it does feel like 90% of the time it feels unstoppable. But there are other decks doing some really powerful things, which I feel at least early on can kind of balance that a little bit. But as we go forward and decks ultimately get, you know, a bit more fine-tuned and, you know, we kind of march along to the Mythic Championship. Who knows? But
what do you guys think about the Stacks deck? This deck is really interesting to me because if you've been following like the feedback to this deck, people either think it's horrible or they think it's like the best deck in Standard and they're like winning tournaments with it or whatever. Where do you fall on the stack scale, and how good do you think this deck actually is?
I don't think it. I think the mana is atrocious. Like, you must draw an egg. Like, you have to draw everything in the right sequence. And if you do, the deck does feel unbeatable. But if you draw things in the wrong sequence, you just like scoop and die. Like you're playing like the most like crazy mana base, like Kaya's Wrath, white, black. If you draw one of your islands, it's over. You're dead, right? There is basically no interaction, until turn 3. And I don't know, it just felt really clunky sometimes, and I don't like it. But if you get the engine going, if you actually, your opponent stalls out a bit, you get the eggs down, you get the Doom Foretold down, then it's great. But against a Simic Ramp, it's not relevant. Like, you just sack a goose here, sack a goose there, smash it to Crassus, Oko you to death. Like, I feel it's a bit weird. I feel in best of 3, the deck changes significantly from best of 1. And I don't know which one is better. But in best of 1, like, I didn't like this deck that much. And it's so slow. It is like so mind-numbingly slow to play, right? Like, I've won the game and I gotta sit here for 20 minutes, like, you know, getting back my stupid eggs and like finally get to 8 mana, make some 4/4s. It just takes forever to win, and I don't want to see the mirror match. Like, I don't know what the mirror match looks like, but this has got to be like one of the worst mirror matches of all time.
I bet it ends with milling most of the time because there's so many wraths too. So even if you manage to like get back all your eggs as 4/4s, they're just gonna get wrathed, and someone's just gonna mill out. Like, I think that's what it would come down to in the mirror.
Like, Big Teferi is a finisher that we're missing. I never thought I'd say this, right? At least that ended the game. This is like, there's no way to end the game. It's so slow.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree on the best of 1. So admittedly, it's a very, very small sample size of one game. I can't really extrapolate anything from that. But I tried to cycle through like 3 different decks. So I was playing the green black henge deck. I played 4-color wolves, and I played like Rakdos Aggro a couple games. I can see it taking care of an aggro list like fairly handedly with planar cleansings, and I know they run like Realm Cloak Giant sometimes or something like that, but it just felt really odd the one game that I played when you're going off with Henge or something like that, and they play, you know, a Guild Globe on turn 5 or something like that, and you're like,
okay, sure.
Okay,
yes.
and you're like, sure, all right.
And that's
yeah.
when they finally get double white, double black.
Yeah, and then, you know, and then the other game, I think I might have played it 2 games, but I didn't even realize it was the deck until it was over. Because, yeah, and then I was playing the 4-color Wolves list, and they played Wishclaw Talisman. They, you know, tutored, and then I got the Wishclaw Talisman, turned it into a 3/3 with Oko, and then just like won the game with a bunch of 3/3s. So it just, I didn't even realize it was the deck until it was over. But yeah, I think it's one of those decks that obviously look a lot better in a different context of best of 3, and the matchups is like a huge, probably a huge thing for this deck, because like you said, it either looks really good or atrocious.
Yeah, I think it's very beatable. Like, that's been my impression of it. I think it's a really cool deck, and I think it's neat to see. Like, when I first saw Doom Foretold, I thought it was just like not standard playable, but it's really cool to see the style of deck working. But I feel like it's a deck that, because it's built around like these weird enchantments in the graveyard, and that's where the power is coming from, I think it's taking advantage of the fact that people just like aren't prepared for enchantments and graveyards at the moment. And I think if people want to beat this deck, I think it's pretty easy to like build your deck in a way to like interact with the Stacks deck and beat it.
Just one last point I want to make. I feel like just a lot of creatures in Standard currently are just so powerful on each one of their respective curves that it's really hard to, you know, unless you've now, with that list particularly, have locked down the board, it's really hard to deal with each threat as they come out. I mean, Knight of Ebon Legion might be one of the better 1-drops I played with in a long time. Then you have Growth Chamber Guardian, which can get out of control. You know, and then you go up the line of, you know, Rotting Regisaur, Questing Beast, you have Spawn of Mayhem. You just have so many good creatures at every slot that it just feels almost insurmountable sometimes to deal with each specific creature.
All right. How about the aggro decks? Rakdos aggro, mono black aggro. They're like kind of similar. What did you guys think about those decks?
I really like the mono black and Rakdos decks. I thought Rankle was one of the more underrated cards during spoiler season, and I still think Rankle is actually like really strong. So I think that's the power of the deck. If you look at the mono black curve or the Rakdos curve, and Chaz was kind of mentioning that, it's just so big. Like, you don't do anything fancy, but just all the way up the curve from 1 mana to 4 mana, every single threat that you present is like so strong and above the curve. From like Knight into like a Dreadhorde Butcher, Robber of the Rich, into a Rotting Regisaur or a Bone Crusher Giant, into a Rankle or a Spawn of Mayhem. And if you're in the Rakdos, one of the really neat thing about adventures in the Rakdos deck is you kind of just get to play all creatures, because your removal happens to be adventure creatures like Bone Crusher Giant and also Murderous Rider. So you get to just overload on threats and not really play any removal spells, because your creatures end up being the removal spells as well. It's like you just get a deck full of Chupacabras and like Flametongue Kavus that happen to be these adventure creatures.
Yeah. I played some games with Rakdos aggro. I didn't really like it. I feel Rankle is really good. Now, Rankle is actually a really hard card to play with. But you can't be Oko, man. They just make some 3/3 elks and you have such a huge problem. The most interesting thing I found was with the mono black deck, where you get Ayara and then you just loop Gutter Bones and burn people out. I thought that's a pretty interesting way to try to end the game. But I think Rankle is the best card in the deck, in both decks. And I think Rankle's like in every deck, right? Mono black, Rakdos, and Golgari. Right. And it's funny, there's like, whose Rankle is better? I'm like, he's got Rankle, but I got the better Rankle. And then like, I keep flopping back and forth, and you're like, should I burn him out with the 1 damage to trigger Knight of the Ebon Legion? Like, there's lots of interesting lines of plays you could do with it. But I feel like aggro decks are slow. Like, they don't have the reach. They don't have the big burn spells to finish you off. Like, the finishing things are like a Rankle, like a hasty Rankle, which can be removed. So it's an interesting time, because like Seth said, they're all creatures. There's like very few burn spells. There's, light up the stage and things like that. You don't really see that. It's only in Cavalcade decks. Not too much card advantage. Just everyone's leaning heavy on creatures, and Oko is fine with making Elks to block everything.
And I wonder if, like, that'll change. Like, how much... There are decent burn spells in the format still. The new one, Slaying Fire, I think, is actually, like, pretty reasonable, especially if you can get to triple red. So maybe it's just that, like, these decks need to adapt and add more reach.
Isn't it 3 mana, deal 3 damage?
Or 4 damage if you have triple red.
Do you really want to be playing that? That's
4
so
for
expensive.
3 is pretty good. 4 for 3 is... I think 4 for 3 is pretty reasonable.
But you need triple red.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That is
You're
true.
playing double black in most of your cards in the mono black deck.
Skewer the Critics. Skewer the Critics is just awkward because it wants you to attack first, which is really awkward sometimes with, like, the Rakdos Aggro decks, because you kind of want to, like, get a blocker out of the way sometimes, but you need to, like, attack first to get it for 1 mana. So that ends up being, like, I don't know, this weird tension with Skewer and the Rakdos decks, I think.
As much as I love aggro lists, I'm with Richard on this one. And, for everything that we did talk about, and you mentioned it also, Seth, and, I was just kind of talking about, there are a lot of things, like, really powerful things to do along the curve, but I always tend to lean to, it doesn't really feel like it matters all that much, right? I mean... Night of the Ebon Legion's great, and then you kind of go up and you're playing Rotting Regisaur. I did like Rankle. That card certainly stood out to me as probably the best card in the deck. But then you have cards like that feel like they almost are useless. I don't think I played against a few aggro lists, not a ton of them, but Robber the Rich, I don't think I've ever seen trigger one time.
They always get the trigger. Like, they just never get to cast the spell.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a card
like,
cast from it either.
either not trigger, or it does trigger and they get nothing out of it. So I guess they remove a card. I guess.
But Rankle's a rogue. You could theoretically play it later by attacking with Rankle.
Yeah, the only thing that this deck has going, or the aggro lists have going for them, is that haste seems to me to be at a all-time premium. Like, if you are considering some cards that probably wouldn't normally be considered because they have haste. Like, it feels like if the creature doesn't have haste, it's almost useless. Because there's just Oko, and then there's Teferi, and there's a lot of other stuff that needs to just get removed almost immediately.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason that, like, Questing Beast is so good, Rankle is so good. Those hasty threats that can come down and snipe a Planeswalker, really valuable right now. So I think we were talking about, like, Gilded Goose into Oko being really good. Another, like, really scary start is the Golgari deck, just like a Paradise Druid into turn 3 Questing Beast or Rankle. A lot of times that's just a game-winning line right there. When you play it a turn early, come down, you, like, snipe a Planeswalker, get in for a bunch of damage. Those games can really spiral out of control quickly, too.
I almost fainted when I saw Questing Beast.
So much text.
I almost legitimately fell out of my chair.
Hasn't been that good, actually. I feel it's okay. I feel like I haven't lived a dream of, like, smacking someone for 4 and killing their Planeswalker.
It's always my Planeswalkers that are dying to it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's... like everything block, like either your opponent has Questing Beasts or they're like creatures big enough. Like
you just always have Oko 3/3s to block it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Like I felt like it underperformed for me. Like Rankle overperformed. Rotting Regisaur is like the most terrible card in existence. Like I don't know why. I'm like, please turn it into an elk, please, before my upkeep, turn it into an elk.
Yeah.
I gotta say, have you guys run into the Simic Flash deck at all? That was a deck heading into rotation that I was thinking might be near the top of standard, and then I've played against it quite a few times because it's pretty cheap, so people tend to play it on Arena, and I have been very unimpressed with it. Like, it feels not very good to me. I'm always, like, prepared to be scared by it, but then I think I underrated how much losing their counter spells hurt. Quench is just a joke. Like, you accidentally play around Quench a lot of times because you just have 2 mana available. So I think that that deck has been one of the ones that has been most disappointing to me, that I expected to be top tier right after rotation. And people still play it, but I just haven't thought it's that good. What is your Simic Flash experience, Ben?
Haven't seen it. Didn't even know it was a deck. I did not see it at all.
I think I saw it one time. I love Brazen Borrower. I think that's probably the best card in the deck, and the rest of the deck just I'm with you, Seth. Felt very underwhelming. You're absolutely right. if I wasn't even playing around Quench, I probably was playing around Quench, just like, without even really realizing it, because there's just a lot. So it's either the mid-range lists are almost all ramp lists, so they have a ton of extra mana just kind of lying around, especially if they have Nissa or something like that. Good.
Nah, man, I need a 12 mana Voracious Hydra. I'm not holding 2 mana for Quench. I need to get like my 2020 on the battlefield, okay?
But you're right. I much like the stacks list we talked about, I feel like I'm going with Richard in the fact that this deck also lacks a way to end the game, right? So you have like a lot of these, flash creatures, but they don't really feel that threatening outside of maybe Nightpack Ambusher, because it just kind of creates tokens. But yeah, outside of that, I really wasn't too concerned with it.
I think this is actually a relatively new deck in the last day or two, because stuff is changing so quickly. Have you seen the adventure decks yet?
I have.
Those decks, that deck is really cool. I don't know if it's how good it is, but it's just a sweet idea to just jam all your Lucky Clovers and just like all of your adventure creatures. And if you have a Lucky Clover, any adventure creature becomes so good when you're getting like killing 2 things with Murderous Rider, or double ramping with Beanstalk Giant, or even just like drawing 2 cards with Foulmire Knight. It really spirals out of control really quickly. I've been messing around with that deck a little bit just this morning, and I don't know if it has staying power, but I think it's a really neat idea.
What if you don't get the Lucky Clover? Do you just have an A+ sealed deck? Is that what's going on?
Yes, then you have a reasonable sealed deck.
Yeah, I haven't played against it. I didn't have no desire to play it. I mean, it looks strong. I know there was some chatter, and some arena lists that look pretty good. Like the deck can do powerful things. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It's like what Richard said. Without the Clover, I don't know if any of those 1 cards are that good.
Yeah, and if you turn 2 Clover, they turn 3 Oko Elkit. You're like, okay.
So attack the Oko. Haha.
And then it still lives. Like, that's how stupid Oko is, right? Like, you're like, what? Really?
And what's really crazy is that these lines aren't even out of the ordinary, right? Like, I felt like, oh, okay, Gilded Goose and Oko and all this stuff, and turning like all these important artifacts into 3/3s. Like, that's how often is that going to happen? It happens a lot. And then I was like, oh, I love all these cards, but how realistically can I play like turn 4 or 5 Henge? Pretty realistically, it's not even Christmas Land. Like, it's happening pretty often.
Yeah.
Oko is doing all of these things.
This Jund Adventure deck, I feel if Once Upon a Time could hit Lucky Clover, it would look a lot better. But it doesn't. But what are your thoughts on Once Upon a Time? Is it a good card or is it an awkward card?
Everyone plays it. Personally, I don't know. I'm not as high on it as most people. I see it all the time. So many decks are playing it, and it is really nice when you cast it for free on turn 0 or turn 1, but I don't know. It feels so fillery to me. Like, I don't know if that's a card I want in my deck. Spending 2 mana to dig 5 deep, like, I'm just not sure that's worth it for most decks. But I'm probably wrong, because everyone is playing it in, like, every possible deck.
I love it. It has turned unkeepable hands into insane hands. And it is, I'm kind of with you 50-50 in terms of what you just said, Seth. Outside of playing it for 0 mana, I don't know how many times I've hard casted it, but it does certainly help when you're trying to dig for anything sometimes, just to keep like the henge going or something like that, just to keep the value train going. I think for its cost, it is doing a lot. And when you do play it for 0, I've found that most hands that I wouldn't normally keep with Once Upon a Time in it, I'm like, oh, I got this. Once Upon a Time is just going to grab me this land. This hand's going to be amazing. And like 9 out of 10 times it works. The 1 out of 10 times it didn't work, I was like, oh, well.
I keep wondering if decks are going to start like trimming lands because they have Once Upon a Time, but so far it doesn't seem like they have. I was looking at the list and it seems like a lot of them are still playing like 24 lands or whatever number you would expect even without Once Upon a Time. So I don't know. Maybe that's something to explore more. I think it becomes more appealing to me if you can like trim a land or 2 for an action card and then trust that you're still going to get there because of Once Upon a Time.
Sure. That's a good idea. Yeah.
I mean, what if you play a 1-drop and then draw your Once Upon a Time? But I feel like, I don't know, it saves my bacon multiple times where you use it to get a land to like curve out. But at the same time, like, is it really worth a card slot? Like in the mid game, it's so bad. Like you don't want to spend 2 mana to activate it. But late game, it's great. You got to dig 5 deep again. But like Seth, I'm surprised this thing is so ubiquitous. I would have assumed that you would just put more action cards in your deck, especially since all of the decks are good stuff decks. If that makes sense. Like it doesn't even matter what card you grab from your deck. Like all of them are good. So it's not like we have a combo or anything going on. So I don't know. I feel it's weird that everyone's playing so many of these. And I've definitely been burned. It saved my bacon, just grab the land I need. But I've also been burned where I'm like, oh, I'll use this once upon a time to get something. And I just got a land and it died. Right? Like when you don't want the land, right?
I think the only time I really truly whiffed with Once Upon a Time was I need something. I dig 5. I saw Garuk there and I was like, well, I guess there that goes. I am surprised. It still feels like you should want it in the deck though, no? Just maybe not at 4? Like I feel like I still want this effect.
But if you don't have 4, how are you gonna get it in your opening hand?
I know it just feels weird, right? It feels weird, but yeah, I don't know. I feel this should be something that we monitor ongoing. But can I ask a question? I saw in the early access streams there was like these crazy Fires of Invention decks, and then I didn't see one of them. Those decks seemed amazing to me. Like if it's any card I want to build around, it's that card. And you could do like so many crazy stuff. So much crazy stuff.
I've run into a few of them. I haven't actually gotten a chance to play one yet because I've been working on other stuff. They definitely could be really powerful. I think, I don't know. The drawback is real. I definitely I've played against Fires of Invention decks where, they kind of get pinched not being able to interact at all at instant speed, and then you just kill their stuff, or they have like 7 cards in hand, but they can only cast 2 a turn. But then you have the games where people play it and just like dump Chandra and Liliana on the same turn, and it looks like the craziest card in Standard. So I think it's going to take some building around to get it right. You need to find like the right mana sinks. I played against a really cool version of it that was actually using Divine Visitation and the white enchantment that makes a 1/1 lifelink token is 2 of their threats. So then you could use all of your mana each turn to just like make tokens, or you can activate like Kenrith or something while you're still like using your 2 spells to cast big planeswalkers. So I think there's potential there, but I think it's a really hard deck to get right. So if you look at the decks that are like succeeding right away, and this isn't a knock on them, but they're kind of like obvious, like, oh, play all the good black cards together, oh, play all the food synergies with Oko, or oh, like the best green black cards and we'll just attack every time. So I think that's a deck that might get there eventually, but it's going to take a little more brewing and like tuning to get the right spot for Fires of Invention.
All right. So here's the more important question, guys. So starting October 5th, which would be Saturday, until the 7th, which would be Monday, you get to play any standard deck event again. If you hit 12 wins, you get 1 of every card in Eldraine. If you hit 2 losses, you're out. What deck are you guys bringing to the event?
Something with Oko in it.
What is the deck?
Something Oko.
I mean, there's only 2 Oko decks, right? Simic and Bant. Is there another Oko deck?
I think that's most of it. Simic and Bant at this point.
I guess
Simic, Trollgak. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the more food focused versions. Yeah.
I don't know if I really trust that deck to go the distance, but this is just me. I mean, I'm sure folks may be successful with it, but I don't know. I really liked. I played with 4-color wolves a lot, and it felt really good. Like I don't know. I felt like I always had something for everything.
My concern. So I love that list. I really like the 4-color wolves deck as well. Although I gotta say, in a tournament where you got to go 12-1. Yeah. I would be a little scared that you'll just have like 1 or 2 games where your mana doesn't work the way you want it to, and then you might lose as a result. And then like in like that kind of setup, I don't know. 4-color scares me right now, especially if you got to go 12-1.
It's not going to be an aggro list, so that's out.
Maybe Stacks.
Maybe that or Henge.
Yeah, Golgari. Yeah, the Golgari Henge deck. I don't know. I would probably play a ramp deck, honestly. I think that's the direction I would go. Mostly because I like drawing cards, and I like Risen Reef, so I think I would have fun playing that deck. I don't have any illusions that I'm going to go 12-1, so I'm just going to play something I like and hopefully get a couple like individual card rewards or something.
It's probably a good choice. Nissa is ridiculous. Yeah. So I'm good with that. You're playing probably the 3 best planeswalkers in Standard right now, so that's good. It's a good choice.
That's a good starting point.
I don't think you need the white. I think the white just makes it inconsistent. I'm gonna go Simic Ramp.
So?
Simic Ramp does everything that Bant Ramp can. Like, I don't know who wins the mirror. I guess the question is, in the mirror, which deck is better?
Yeah, I don't know. I have not played that matchup, so I don't know.
I played it, but then I just like ate all the Risen Reefs with my wolves. So like, I don't know if it's supposed to go like this, and then Teferi did nothing. Like. But
speaking of wolves, man, what a sleeper. I did not hear anyone talking about Wicked Wolf. And then all of a sudden, it's like one of the better cards in some of the better decks in Standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kills
Absolutely.
basically everything. I guess the mid-range deck can get bigger than it, but it's a 4/4, so it kills basically anything.
It's just, it has a lot of, no pun intended, it has a lot of food. So just lying around most of the games. So, and then if you're in a board state where Oko can just produce a food every turn, it feels really good.
Is this the Red Riding Hood wolf?
I think so.
It's not Three Little Pigs wolf, right? Three Little Pigs wolf isn't this.
What's the Wicked Wolf from?
It's got to be Red Riding Hood, right?
Oh, that's a big bad wolf, isn't it? What one's the big bad wolf?
I thought that's Three Little Pigs.
Yeah, it's 3 Little Pigs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, yeah.
Did we get all of them? We didn't even get a legendary wolf now that I think about it.
We didn't get a legendary pig either. Or 3 of them.
Oh, we should get 3 of them.
Well, no, in the video they're gone. Right?
Oh.
There was like the 3 heads on the table.
Oh,
they weren't even in the set.
I missed that.
That's dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The video. Gotta pay attention.
How about Limited? What do you guys think of Eldraine Limited?
I played one pre-release sealed event. I opened Garrick and Oko. I started out 0-2 and then won 7 in a row. Yeah.
Okay.
It seemed like a fun format. I saw a lot of really wild stuff that I was not expecting, like Eye Collector mill decks and like 4-color adamant decks, and just people were playing weird piles of stuff in sealed. I haven't got to draft yet. I don't even know if draft is up on Arena yet. I think it comes in a couple days. Yeah, I think it's coming in the future, but I don't know. I had fun playing it, but I also had like a pretty above average sealed pool.
So I opened 3 Garricks. And
really?
Unlike Seth, no. So I played like maybe I have like 44 packs. So I played like, what is that? Like maybe 12 sealed pools. I went 1-3-0-3 with my first 2 Garrick pools.
How? Garrick is so
Here's the
sealed.
thing. Here's the thing, guys. This format is fast, right? And you may not notice it in sealed because if you play like say 2 green-black decks, then they're like slow and dirtily. But I think the best deck are the Boros decks. And you remember Zendikar that we played in Vegas, right, Seth?
Yes.
This feels like Zendikar. It is impossible to block a Boros deck. Like there's so many. So in normal limited, you have like what 2 to 3 pump spells in your deck, maybe. Most likely you have like 1 to 2, and then the rest is removal. Here, like every creature is a pump effect in Boros. Plus you have the 3-mana 2/3 flyer that taps 2, right? Plus you have all the blue things that like tap you down as well. So like it's impossible to block. And then if you try, you get blown up by combat tricks. It's like Zendikar and Landfall. I think the format is going to be really fast once we get to draft, and you can actually draft a cohesive Boros deck. But yeah, so that's why I died. I was like, okay, Garrick. And then they just like smash me in the face with flyers till I die. Or like, I was playing like mediocre black and green cards, and like you can't get there. It's not like an Elspeth or something. Like I don't know, right? Like you have to play a legitimate deck until you get to Garrick, and I did not do that. So I went 1-3 and 0-3. I was like, oh, easy pool. Lost 2,000 gems.
That's actually kind of scary if that's happening in sealed, because normally aggro kind of suffers in sealed just because of how the format works. So if it's that good in sealed, I expect it'll probably be even better in faster in draft.
Yeah, my go-to strategy is just always do Boros in sealed, no matter what collection of garbage Boros cards you have. So I told Seth this story. I tried to build a mill deck, a blue-black mill deck. I had like 3 eye collectors, 2 merfolk, the merfolk that mills 4 and becomes a wall, and then I had like 3 didn't say pleases. I didn't get close to milling anybody out. Went 0-2, switched to like some janky Boros and went like 6 wins in a row to end like 6-2. Like, I don't know. Boros is just so aggressive in this format. And like, it's just so hard to tap. You get 2 of those tapping flyer guys, it's over.
Well,
what do you feel was an overperformer in either of your experiences? I didn't get to play limited, and I didn't get to see like the streams that kind of covered it. They were kind of later in the day, right?
Yeah, I think Limited came on later in the day for a lot of people.
Yeah, I had to go. So I didn't really even get to catch like anything. I probably should go back and look through. But are the archetypes kind of, is there a ton of like color options, or they kind of just steer you into X colors? Because I saw a lot of those, a lot of the cards where they're those split manas that are totally not a plant for Theros coming along next set. Totally not.
Those cards are really
not
hard.
Obvious at all.
So you're kind of forced into 2 colors. Yeah. So you can try 3, but it's hard because of Adamant and then the uncommons. And there's like the Evolving Wilds as fixing, and then that's it. And then like your green mana dorks. But I think decks that are really good are the Boros decks. If you can somehow get a cohesive blue-red draws an extra card deck going, it's really good. Like the 2 mana 1/2 that you put a counter on, it flies. That card is insane if you actually have like Wishing Wells and Eggs or whatever to draw your second cards. Golgari could be good, but you need the uncommon, the 3 mana 3/2. Where when it attacks, it makes a food token.
Oh, Savvy Hunter, yeah.
Yeah. That thing is insane. The 2 mana enchantment that lets you basically like anticipate whenever you sack a food.
That was a card I was actually going to mention. I had 2 of those in the deck that I played. I thought Trail of Crumbs was really good. That was like my main card advantage engine. I also had Oku, which was nice, and some other just like random commons. I think I had 3 gingerbread cabins to make food, so I had a lot of ways to make food. And that card just made sure I always had action. So I also thought that really overperformed for me.
Troll King, game ender all the time.
Oh my god, I didn't.
The only thing is it's hard to cast, right? There's time because it's like 4 green or whatever. Like it's really hard to cast, but they cast it. You're like, well, I could kill it. And then they sack 3 food. Or say you're somehow winning. They have like 4 food or 3 food tokens to sacrifice to gain life now. So you can't even race them. And you just die to inevitability. That thing's a beating. Lovestruck Beast, insane. I would take Lovestruck Beast over Questing Beast any day. Questing Beast was mediocre. Because in Limited, there's like so many big creatures that it doesn't do much. But Lovestruck Beast, like a turn 3 5/5, like, it's like just goes to town.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm going to have to, I think I have some gems on there. I'll probably jump into a sealed at some point.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. I found the format to be fun in my small sample size, but I think it's definitely worth checking out. Definitely plan on also checking out the drafts once they start, because that's usually more my thing compared to sealed, and kind of excited to see how good the decks will be when you can actually like draft them for 3 packs rather than just deal with what you get in your sealed pool.
Yeah.
Drafts launch when the set actually launches?
No, it's going to be, so I think, so this week they're going to have the ones where you pay gems to draft. And then it's usually like 2-3 weeks after that they open the gold drafts.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, because I think I have a like a traditional draft entry like hanging out on my account or something like that. So figured I'd hold it for.
Where do you get those from?
For Eldraine.
Like
I don't know.
Maybe?
I honestly don't know where I got that particular one. I think it was from a pre-release code, but that someone probably was generous enough to give me. But Did we not get one for being in the beta?
Oh
no, we got
something
packs
like that?
or something.
And I just never used it.
Oh, maybe you got one like a long time ago.
Yeah, this has probably been hanging out for like a year, but it's still there. So plan on using it.
Any other Throne of Eldraine standard or limited thoughts before we get to some fish mail?
Yeah, you said you had a comment, and I think it's probably apt for a lot of early deck construction, but it's like you said, a lot of things just feel really obvious. Gilded Goose into Oko. I mean, Questing Beast is a thing. Murderous Rider's good. Teferi still, doing things. Is it still as good as it once, before rotation? Can it still be built around? All these things just feel very obvious, but as we kind of go along, like, is this even the best iteration of an aggressive list? I feel some of these things will be determined here very soon, but my gut feeling is that it's going to be a lot of mid-range, and then that's kind of when control starts to form. I don't know if these stack lists or anything like that are going to hang around, but if it does continue to be like that, then I feel like maybe the flash list might actually become a bit better, because they just feel like really awful right now.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be much better.
I think, yeah, it's definitely important to remember, like, the set's literally not out in paper yet. This is all like early, came out on Arena stuff. Like,
I've
this
burnt
week
out a
is
standard
when the set
already,
actually
Seth. What do you
releases.
mean?
Yeah. So now we'll know a lot more. Like, there's a SCG event this weekend. GPs will be coming, like, 3 weeks or so till the Arena Mythic Championship. So we definitely will, I think, see a lot of changes in Standard over the next month or so.
Now, to be fair, I have kind of followed, at least very loosely. I think we're going to see a lot of what we're seeing right now in the SCG events. Like, I don't think there's going to be that many changes, at least early on, but as we kind of go along, I feel there is some room for new things to kind of emerge. I don't know how they line this up anymore, so you can educate me. Is this out on MTGO? Do they release things on MTGO similarly to Arena now, or no?
Yes, it came out Thursday on both Magic Online and Magic Arena. And then we had pre-release in paper, and then official release in paper is on Friday.
And are they publishing deck lists from MTGO yet?
I don't think we've seen a batch. I think tomorrow we should get the first batch of deck lists. So we'll see. The standard lists have been a little scarce since everyone plays standard on Arena, but I'll actually be looking forward to seeing the modern list too. Like, there's a lot of hype about Emery in modern maybe being like a legit card, even like Fires of Invention, Once Upon a Time. So I think there's stuff to keep track of for modern too with Throne of Eldraine.
Great. Yeah. Wow. Speaking of modern, I was not even here to see Stoneforge Mystic get unbanned and all that stuff. So it's been quite a long time.
You missed Hoga, the greatest card of all time.
Yeah, I missed the Eldrazi Winter 2.
Oh, you missed Eldrazi Winter?
No. I meant I missed the new Eldrazi. The sequel. I didn't pay any money to see the sequel.
It was short-lived, but Modern's in a better spot now, I think. I'm pretty happy with where Modern is post-bannings and unbannings.
It's kind of funny how, going back to, when we first started casting, like the first couple of years, how that idea went along and then, turned into Modern Horizons. It's kind of crazy how we discussed that kind of idea that cards should go directly into Modern like 4 years ago.
Yeah, we've been talking about that for a while. It's
a long time. I remember that's something that you specifically wanted for a long time.
And really, I'm happy with the results too. Like, I know there was a couple misses, but in general, I think Modern Horizons has been a big positive for Modern.
Yeah. Sorry, this is me just reminiscing and kind of reacting to stuff that I missed as I see it pop up. But yeah.
Yeah, so let's move on. Richard, fishmail us.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. First question, Tidal Wave 87. What's your opinion on climbing the ladder on MTG Arena? Better to go best of 1 or best of 3?
I haven't answered a fishmail in a long time. This is great.
Chaz, take it away. Best of 1 or best of 3?
I feel like best of 1. I don't know. I just kind of feel, in terms of the time investment and ultimately the deck choices that you see and can ultimately choose, that I feel best of 1 for me personally has felt better.
I'm going to say it depends on how good you are. I think if you're newish or not as good, you should probably play best of 1 to grind. But if you're experienced and like a really high level player, you will probably benefit from playing best of 3.
Yeah, I think I'll agree.
Take that as
I think it's easier because each game counts towards your thing. So when you win a match, it is 2 wins versus 1 win. And if you're a better player, like typically the way you outplay people is with your sideboard and with, knowing what the other person has in their deck and all that stuff. So I think best of 3 is better, but sometimes you just have 5 minutes to sit down and play best of 1. You don't have time to sit there and grind it out.
And trust in the variance. Like if you're not good, that's how you climb the ladder, is you trust that the higher variance of best of 1 will eventually pay off. Or you could at least get more. I think it's easier to get lucky in best of 1 than it is in best of 3 because you're only playing one game and have the smaller sample size.
It also depends on deck. It's not totally player skill. There are some decks that are better suited to best of 1 than best of 3. And if you like playing those decks, it's better to go best of 1.
Appreciate that, Seth. I love you too.
Good to have you back, Chaz.
Absalom Wizard. Is it possible that Brazen Borrower is mythic purely to play strain on the arena wildcard economy? Making format staples mythic seems like an effective way to move the economy slightly more in their favor. I think it would be the opposite. I think it makes it easier because it's mythic.
Did I miss something?
So mythic is supposed to be more rare, right? But usually on arena, the bottleneck to you building decks is rare wildcards. Because you need like basically 1 million to get all your dual lands. And, every deck has a handful of mythics, but, 10s or 20s of rares. So I actually feel rare is the bigger bottleneck. So making things mythic, I think, actually makes it easier for us.
Although it's the opposite in paper. So, but on arena, I think you're right. Although in paper, I could see the argument that it could be a price thing.
Was this card supposed to be a rare or something? I feel I've seen people complain about this card.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem particularly mythic. I think, Seth, you don't think it's mythic.
It's a disperse and a cloud spirit or whatever. Like it doesn't feel mythic to me. Like Great Henge and even the bad members of that cycle, they're like big and epic and mythic. This to me reminds me a little bit of like Lotus Cobra, which was another card that I didn't think was mythic. Like it feels
it's an epic tempo play, Seth. Don't be such a Timmy.
It's really good and push for standard, but traditionally I've wanted those rare. But you make a really good point. Maybe in a world of arena, we actually are better off having pushed for standard cards like that at mythic. Like as odd as that sounds, coming from a paper background.
I just want us to be able to buy rares with mythic wildcards. Wouldn't that solve all of this? Better yet, they can be generous and let us buy 2 rares with a mythic wildcard.
Interesting. I kind of like that.
If they do it, they're going to charge you 2 mythic wildcards for 1 rare or something like that.
Oh, Chaz, did you catch it on that where they release historic and they're like, it's double the price, guys? Like what?
As someone that I didn't plan on going back and playing those sets because I didn't particularly like a lot of them. I'm okay with never accessing historic ever.
Oh, wait, is historic or brawl or anything up? Is there any game mode on arena where you can play it?
I did not look. No. I don't.
No?
Not sure. Yeah.
October sometime towards the beginning.
I think
of
I
October.
did miss all that though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess they decided not to release it at the exact same time as Throne of Eldraine. I think it's like October 6th or 10th or something like that.
I heard through the, various channels that there was like a big debacle about that, but I luckily missed that too.
G. Sansigolo. I did a little research and came up with a number. From September 17th, 2018 to September 16th? Oh yeah, September 16th, 2019. So basically a year. 22 of the 54 podcasts published were about spoilers, which means that it has become the headline for weeks. You guys believe we have too many sets / products nowadays? Do you guys believe?
I'm going to say no. I'm worried that we're heading in that direction. And stuff like Deluxe Collection definitely makes me even more nervous about it, but I don't know if we've hit that point yet. I think I'm going to say no because they go for different audiences in general. And a lot of the products that we end up talking about, they're designed for like a specific narrow audience and not for everyone.
I'm going to agree. Not every product is for every player, but you got to think about Magic will continue to be successful as long as it continues to be in everyone's minds, right? I understand that it feels like we're always talking about new cards and everything like that, and largely because that's true. I don't know if it's an overload, but with this, when you look at like the gaming genre, I guess as a whole, this is kind of like a meta take, but when you're game is like not being talked about. It's almost like pretty much forgotten. So I do like that Magic, it may not be a set, but it's a product, continues to try and stay in everyone's kind of psyche in some way or another. And that makes it relevant, I think.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
Chaz has explained why this
podcast.
Forget the podcast. Like we go preview season into preview season into preview season. You remember when we started the podcast? Like we had our 3 set releases a year. We had our 3 pro tours, and we're happy with it. Right nowadays, we finish preview season. We get like 1 week of playing the new set, and we're on to the next preview season. And we actually saw this, like Modern Horizons and Core Set 2020 and Commander. Like you barely finish, you barely get to play with the new cards, and you're already starting to hype up about the cards being released next month. So we are in continual preview season. And I know, Seth, we talk about this. It's like, oh, during preview season, we'll do this special thing. And then we're like, wait, but we're always in preview season. It's just always happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I actually don't know if it's good or bad, but it definitely is different from before. Before we didn't have kind of this back-to-back-to-back preview season and, a new product all the time to talk about.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we digest and go through, information and new stuff and content very quickly. Probably faster than ever before, and that's just in general. But
I kid you not, guys. I feel like I'm done with Eldraine. I played like 16 sealed fools, 12 matches
You're
of
done
Oko.
with Throne.
I'm like, oh, okay, I'm done. I'm ready for the next set. Like we consume content so fast now, right? I just played basically all weekend, and now I'm like, oh, you mean it's not even out in paper yet? I felt like the metagame was solved and everything was done, right? Like that's how much we're consuming this stuff and how much content is out, right? Like you could have watched literally hundreds of hours of Magic content over the weekend.
And the set's
not even out, right? Like the set's not even out, right? Like
it's almost like the 3 weeks leading up to the Mythic Championship are like an eternity. Imagine like that had to be a month or 3 months in between a set. I don't know. I don't know if we can ever even really go back.
Yeah. All right. Last question. Steve Monty 215. Do you think there's a chance we aren't getting actual fetches in Zendikar and instead getting 2-color fixed fetches like Fabled Passage, but for Shocklands? I'm skeptical they'll ever put $100 reprints in standard booster packs.
So I think the argument against fetches in standard is shuffling. Like everyone knows they need to be reprinted. The argument against them isn't that they're too powerful. It's that shuffling is too much of a hassle and too time consuming and paper in specific. So I don't think that making fixed fetches that still require shuffling actually does much. So I think either we get actual fetches because we need the reprint for Modern, or we get not fetches at all. And I don't know, the second half of the Battle for Zendikar land cycle, and everyone is very depressed and sad.
Yeah, I mean, we just reprinted it's like cons, right? Like they've printed, was it cons? What was the set
Cons
with the
gave
fetches?
us the originals, the original fetch lands.
So they've reprinted in standard. So I don't think the price is an issue, but like Seth said, they don't like shuffling. If you ever watch like an arena game and a paper game side by side, you'll see the impact of shuffling. So they don't like that in standard. But I think they're gonna do it. I mean, wasn't the big takeaway from Battle for Zendikar, like, you have to give people what they expect? You can't, like, use your creativity or whatever and do something new. People will just be upset. So everyone's expecting fetches in Zendikar. I'd be very shocked if they did not put fetches.
And I think that the growth of Arena actually is a vote for fetches, like with more and more standard happening on Arena where shuffling just doesn't really matter, other than the client lagging up when you try to search it, which is kind of funny that Arena actually has a little delay and problem with fetches just like paper, and it slows things down. But in theory, because Arena doesn't have any shuffling, that should be another reason that fetches would be okay for standard.
I haven't noticed that. Maybe there's a fox on the battlefield or something and someone was clicking it.
Yeah. I think from the only perspective of I look at it is that they don't like. I remember we always used to talk about like there is that expectation, right? And like, oh, fetches sell sets and whatever. I mean, we've clearly seen that cards that we have expect cannot be in a set and the set will still sell very well, right? I don't think they need to tie or hitch their wagon to fetches to sell sets anymore. I think sets are selling very well on their own. So I think from that standpoint, maybe they leave it out. But you're absolutely right. Like, I could see them trying to at least close, like, make a very close gap between Arena and Paper in terms of shuffling. But Arena, it's all automated. So, like, what do they care?
I could also see the argument that because the last battle for Zendikar was kind of like not that well received, maybe that's another reason that they feel like they have to put fetches in this time, because they can't risk like messing up Zendikar again on a return to Zendikar.
Fair.
All right. That's all our fish mail this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get your questions on air.
Awesome questions. Very good. Yeah, that was fun.
Ooh.
I missed that.
Are you gonna take us out, Chaz? Do you remember the sign off?
Oh, no, I don't remember the sign off at all. I barely remembered the intro. We'll see you next week.
I think it
has it evolved since then?
And this is the crew signing out.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, gents, it's been fantastic. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me on the cast. I hope we can continue to do this in the future. Seth, Richard, it's awesome. Enjoy your day, the rest of the week, and hopefully we'll be here very soon.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. It was super fun to catch up after so long. So yeah, hopefully we get to do it again sometime.
Yeah, I have my old Twitter handle back. Yeah, it's great. At ChazVMTG. In case anyone wants to find me, just shoot me a line. Yeah, it's been awesome to see everyone and kind of reconnect with everybody. So yeah, with that being said, I guess this is going to be the MTG Goldfish crew signing out. We will see you all next time.